Hello everybody, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. This is a paranormal edition. We're going to be talking about UFOs, UAPs, all that kind of stuff. Aliens, extraterrestrials. ISHIRO, FINNEY, is the guest tonight. This is episode 120. Thank you guys for being here. Before we bring on Ishi, I want to say hello to you in the chat. We got Past Master Dan here. What's up, Past Master Dan? Says, I want to believe. Well, all you gotta do is believe. Humble Marty, what's up? Hope you're doing well. We got Grape Nuka-Cola here too. Says, looking forward to the show tonight. Coincidentally, I picked up both of Jay's Arkham books last week. Ah, very cool. Very, very nice. I've got the links to Jay's YouTube and also to 01 Publishing in the description of the show. Huron is here. What's up, Huron? Hope you're doing good. We got What Geeks Do Networks is UFO Talk. Right up my alley. There you go. H is for Heretic. How you doing today? Got a little package from Alterna today. Excellent as usual. Happy to hear it. Very happy to hear it. I'm about, I'd say, 70% through with fulfillment. It's going to be slower, though, because obviously the upcoming holiday... And not just for me, but also mail, I'm noticing, is a lot slower. Stuff that I sent out on like the 12th is still moving around and not where it should be yet, when it would usually take like 4 days to get there. So this time of year, it's what it is. Thank you for your patience, though. I absolutely aiming for everything out before December. Also, there's 6 days left. 6 days left on Alterna's winter apparel and merch campaign. If you want to get a premium limited edition blanket, hoodie, beanie, or mug, 6 days left to do it. 6 days left to guarantee yours. We're only going to print a very limited amount of extras based on the popularity of those pre-ordered items and their sizes. So if you want to guarantee yours, go to alternacomics.com/winter. Aloise is here too. What's up, Aloise? Hope you're doing good today. Thank you for being here. Wolf 10 in the house. What's up? Old Dirty Fatty wants to be a dentist. Poor Hermie. William, what's up, William? Thank you for being here tonight. Metatron's Cube is here too. What's up? How's it going? Doc Mask is here. How's it going, Doc? Jefferson Roswell in the house. Says man or Astro Man. I guess we'll find out. The Beam Pad is here too. Well, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Spaceman coming down from above for this episode. You gotta. Says, hey Pete, coming down to pop in and say, hey, can't stay, but I'll watch the replay. Have a great show. Oh, you're gonna miss a good one. It's gonna be fun. And Doc Mask says, yeah, this time of year, all my stuff gets stuck somewhere in Massachusetts. It is what it is, right? We got to be a little patient. I got to be patient. You got to be patient. We all got to be patient. And Arthur Helmet in the house. What's up, Arthur? Hope you're doing well. Okay, so without any further ado, we got the man of the hour here waiting so patiently, speaking of being patient, in the green room here, Mr. ISHIRO FINNEY. What's up?
Hey, hello there. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here.
ISHIRO FINNEY.
It's going to be a fun one tonight. A fun one.
Yeah. So, last time I was here to discuss my book, Boobs of Steel, now available on Amazon. But tonight it's UFOs.
Yeah. Yeah, we keep a lot of variety here on the show. I'm looking forward to seeing where this conversation is going to go tonight. I know we were talking a little bit about this before the show started. There's been a lot of stuff going on, obviously, in the realm of this subject as of late. Some of it's exciting. Some of it is suspicious.
Very.
And it seems like it's always that. It's always a mix of both. Even the terminology, for those that aren't familiar, obviously UFO, unidentified flying object. UAP has taken on two meanings over the past couple of years. It was unidentified aerial phenomena. Now it's unidentified anomalous phenomena. Anything and everything, I guess, to kind of muddy the waters and get a brand reshaping occurring. Uh, as far as this stuff goes, what's your experience with it? How did you get into it?
How did I get into it? That's kind of a hard call. I mean, I suppose as a child, UFOs interested me, but kind of disturbed me at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that was because as a child, the world was messed up enough as it was. I didn't need an extra factor to slip in and make sense of. And then I think around when I was 13, maybe, I saw one, and it was like my brain utterly blue screened. I didn't know what to make of it because it was like, okay, I see this, it's real. Now I have to factor that into my reality. Where does it fit?
What did you see? What happened?
I was coming back from summer camp. I was on a bus, and we were coming down switchbacks. Oh God, I can't even remember the name of the summer camp. It was in Southern California, but it was during the day, late in the afternoon, around 3 o'clock maybe. The sun is blazing down. It's California. It's summer, and we're looking down over Lake Elsinore, and right over Elsinore, there's a silver disc just slowly passing over it. Kid in the seat next to me saw it too. It felt like reality just stopped, and here it was.
Wow, right in the afternoon.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
a daylight disc sighting,
That's interesting.
which is apparently pretty rare. I mean, the thing that got me too
Yeah.
is that you'd figure it wouldn't look anything like the descriptions. You'd figure something from outer space would be thoroughly alien, but it really did just look like a silver dish or hubcap chromed out with a dome on it. And it was just, that was it. Not a very complex design or anything.
Well, that's the interesting part, right? Is that a lot of these things we don't know necessarily if they're extraterrestrial, right? So
Right.
I think there's a lot of people who have a difficult time understanding that just because something is a UFO, it's unidentified, whatever it may be, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be from outer space. It could be some kind of military thing, some kind of top secret project that's occurring. I know that obviously there's been a lot of evidence and a lot of things to prove in some cases that it's not of this earth, but not everything UFO would necessarily be aliens or extraterrestrials, that kind of a thing. And I'm not trying to qualify or
No.
quantify your experience. I'm just more saying for those that may be watching and are not as familiar about it, that every single thing we would talk about tonight isn't necessarily going to be, if we say UFO or whatever it may be, that it is automatically understood as alien.
Well, one of the interesting things about UFOs before they were thoroughly discredited, and there was a campaign put on by the U.S. government after Roswell to thoroughly discredit and make a fool out of anyone who even dared mention it, which was highly effective. It was amazing how much just release all the information, make it readily available, hide it in plain sight, and then just dirty it up with as much ridicule and ludicrous claims as you possibly could. And it was weird how the public just fell right in line. Did not want to talk about it. It suddenly became, oh, well, only crazy old rednecks out in the boonies see that, which actually that isn't the case. It's actually very
No, it's
rare that it's people out in the boonies.
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly people that you would think are knowledgeable, respectable people in the community, and also people within. How many commercial air pilots have seen it and don't talk about it till they're past the point where they could potentially get fired?
Yep.
It's just
Airline
it's
pilots, fighter
yeah,
pilots, astronauts, presidents.
yeah.
But I was going to say that before the subject was thoroughly discredited by the U.S. government, The last book written by Carl Jung was about UFOs and aliens. And he took it from the approach of this was a phenomena, in his opinion, that had always been around. That UFOs existed well before the reports at Roswell, well before the flaps of the 1950s. And he brought up cases, incidents, and all the way back to the Bible if you want, and said that this phenomena has probably been around for as long as we have, but that what he was interested in is the context we gave it, that we saw them and said, those are alien. And most of the book that he wrote was primarily, well, if we'd been in another era, we would have said they were demons or angels or some other, gods and goddesses. And I kind of like what he came up with as far as how he termed the Greys, which I thought was interesting. Which he referred to them as technology angels.
Technology angels.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Symbolically. And he said that, again, whether they're real or not is an entirely, and what they are, is an entirely different subject matter to what we bring to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that a lot of this stuff has been going on for a really long time. I mean, the whole ancient astronaut theory, if you really want to take a deep dive into it, for those that aren't aware, it goes way further than like the Ancient Aliens show or Eric von Daniken's book, anything like that. There's stuff that is just absolutely mind-boggling to see, in terms of, like, this isn't a new phenomena, this isn't a new subject. A lot of that stuff is obviously touching upon things that have occurred for a very long time within art, within ancient civilization, within creation stories, within all kinds of culture, stuff that even predates the Bible by thousands of years. So it like you said, it's kind of always been like a part of humanity,
Right.
a part of us. But it's interesting how, you could talk about various cave paintings that feature things that look like aliens and look like spacecraft and have detail of these things that are flying and have like propulsion of some kind and all these little, and it makes no sense to ascribe any other kind of explanation to it other than the one that we constantly see come up time and again. I mean, I don't, it's so ubiquitous. It makes no sense that there's such a tremendous amount of energy, money, and time
Right.
being spent towards a cover-up.
Well, that's the other thing that I really, the biggest reveal, I mean, when the government came out and said, okay, UFOs are real, it wasn't the real part, because I think by our generation at least, I mean, boomers were kind of weird about it. By Gen X, everyone was like, yeah, they're real, and nobody was surprised. Nobody was
Yeah.
shocked whatsoever. I think the real reveal where was they just admitted they've been lying to you about what's right in front of your face for 70 years. And everyone went along with it. So what
Yeah.
else are they lying about?
Exactly. And it's become a really good go-to to distract and deflect
Oh,
and
yeah.
and bury large amounts of money and not hold it accountable in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it really has become like a good way to create a lot of strange stuff, stranger than aliens. And that's the motive, I think, that's so strange too, because going back to Roswell when you mentioned it, there, considering that the official explanation still to this day is being treated as like, oh, it's a weather balloon, and even the other stuff that they talked about where they were doing a top secret sort of thing that couldn't come out at the time because they didn't want the information to fall in the hands of the Soviets. So that's why they did what? They basically created a massive amount of just confusion and distrust
Well, there's a
within.
couple of problems with what they said, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems.
Because the weather balloon story was a lie.
Yeah.
Thoroughly a lie. And if anyone wants to say, well, they were just guys on a base, what would they know? No, it was Jesse Marcel, the base's intelligence officer. Not only was he the intelligence officer, but the base there was an elite unit. It was like one of the top units who was entrusted with the A-bomb. So, I mean, these guys would know about top secret projects. These guys would know what was in their sky, and they'd know a damn balloon. But also, when they released all that, was it Project Mogul, I think it was, they released the files,
Yeah, yep.
it didn't line up with the dates. And then the claim about the aliens being dummies, those dummies weren't in use, or weren't even in production until 6 years after the incident.
Yeah, yeah.
So, again, they were lying. Why?
Even burial procedures for dummies?
Yeah.
And then, if I can't recall a weather balloon ever being piloted.
Or why would they need, what was it, three army trucks to haul out all of the debris? And there was enough debris to ship to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, a base in Fort Worth, Texas, and Washington, D.C. That must have been one hell of a balloon.
Huge. The mothership for all the weather balloons.
Right. What was there? The fact that there is a record of the funeral home being asked to make 3 small coffins, and the base getting dry ice to put in the coffins. I mean, that's on record. I mean, why do you need to put dummies in small coffins with dry ice in them? Why were they flown to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Why was the one nurse who drew the picture that looked like a gray alien, who was present when the alien was brought into the local doctors, or the base doctor, immediately after was transferred to a base in England and then mysteriously died 6 weeks later? And cannot be, they tried to find her. She, off the record's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a lot of effort for a balloon.
And even within the same year prior, just a couple months, the whole Kenneth Arnold sighting, too. This was in 1947.
Yeah, just a couple months before.
Yeah, all of this coming very close after. And there was World War II had its fair share of sightings. I mean, Foo Fighters and whatnot. And that still to this day, they don't necessarily know 100% what it is and what was up there with them. But then there was all kinds of other sightings and reports of various things leading up to Roswell all over the earth. People go, oh, this seems to be very concentrated within America, England, Australia, like English-speaking countries, not so much the rest of the world. And maybe the reports are that way, but there's just a lot of countries that just there isn't anything to even report this kind of stuff to, let alone have it taken seriously. There's like one crazy, not one, but there's several crazy sightings over in Japan.
Yeah.
And people get immediately silenced about that stuff.
Well, there was that airline pilot. Let's see if I took notes for this. So there was that case in the 80s where it was 1986. Japanese Airlines cargo flight 1628. That pilot, the flight crew, saw a UFO. They flew over it, and it was bigger than the plane. And it went on for quite a long time, and it kind of ruined his career when he talked about it.
Yeah. That they thought that the sighting was so large on the radar that it read like it was a mothership, that it was huge.
Right.
Something like 10 times the size or something of the 747.
And why would a flight crew lie about that and ruin their careers?
And it was being picked up by multiple people.
So
very strange.
But yeah, I kind of made a list of a bunch of the cases that I thought were the most credible.
Well, let's go over those, though. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That'd be great.
And I just figured we could talk a bit about that. But I put down Kenneth Arnold sighting, which kind of started, the real interest. Roswell, which there's a wealth of stuff to talk about there. There was the Lubbock Lights in 1951, and I brought this one up because it's one of the first cases to well document. Let's see if this rings a bell with the audience. A giant football field, or two sizes of a football field, flying V with dots along the V. A flying boomerang shape. Another one that I thought we could talk a bit about was an incident that is not nearly talked about enough. We always hear, well, if the aliens are here, why don't they just land on the White House lawn? Why don't they just fly over Washington, D.C., and just prove they're here? Well, they
like
did.
When they did, yeah, in 52.
Yep. In 1952, they did. And there are photographs. And you know what it looked like? The Phoenix Lights. A giant flying V with those dots in that configuration. And still, no one believed it. There was a mass sighting over a stadium in 54. There's the incident with Gordon Cooper, the Mercury astronaut, who, during his flight around the Earth, he had seen a huge ship ghosting him, following the capsule. And it was also scanned back at Mission Control. But when they came back, the press was forbidden to ask about it.
Is that when they cut the mic on the guy?
They've done that a few
live?
times.
Yeah, I can't remember if that was the one where he was talking about it, saying that he wasn't alone up there, and they weren't aware that it was a hot mic, and then they had cut him off.
But he apparently was not allowed to talk about it, but did come forward after he retired and said, yeah, that I saw something. He wouldn't get into it much more, but that he said something was up there. There's the 1957 Antonio Villas Boas abduction, which is, I guess, considered the first real known recorded abduction case, if you don't include Ezekiel's Wheel in that. But in 1957, are you familiar with that case?
Which one was it again? Can you say the name?
Antonio Villas Boas. It's Brazilian. So you have a Brazilian lawyer who had a farm, and he was out on a tractor at night, and a craft flew over him, stunned him, set down, and guys in suits came out and dragged him into the craft. And they gave him an examination. They took blood from under his chin. Then they filled the cabin with gas. And he got really, really aroused. And then a very, very beautiful elfin woman who looked like she had Asian features, but with platinum blonde hair and a curvaceous figure. She was like 4'11", 4'9", something like that.
That's a very common sighting, too.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
They have sex. Then the aliens dump him off in the field. And that's it. And that one's really interesting because he did suffer from radiation poisoning. And there was no way to explain it. He had burns. He experienced a lot of different weird symptoms. And there was a visible ring of warts that formed around his penis for a long period of time that went away. And that's actually is not a random detail that I bring up, because in 1961, the next case I was going to bring up, the best known abduction case, Betty and Barney Hill, when Barney was examined afterwards, one of the things that was left over was a ring of warts around his penis.
Yeah, and he also unfortunately passed away just a couple of years after it.
Yeah, but
and, both of them were just constant health ailments. Yeah. There's a lot of weird. I mean, obviously, you would have radiation poisoning in that respect. I mean, there's cosmic rays on the
Yeah.
surrounding the entirety of the ship. The individuals are obviously in a different kind of environment. You'd need some kind of containment suit if you're going to have them exposed to certain things. So it's strange how often that happens, because there's no other report for it other than, you go to the certain areas and then you could pick up a couple different things. There's been Geiger counter type readings in some of the areas in which abductions were reported, but most of the time people don't even know what the hell happened to them. They don't even want to talk about it. So by
Right.
the time they do report a lot of the stuff, it's difficult to get a grasp on a lot of it other than seeing the ailments show up on them in terms of what's happening.
Have you ever listened to the recordings of the hills when they were under
Oh
hypnotic
yeah,
regression?
yeah. It's crazy
Yeah,
stuff.
those are amazing. Those are really interesting. And what a lot of people don't know about that one is that the guy who did the hypnosis was wasn't just some quack or some amateur, but a very renowned doctor who went on to help develop the most effective treatment for shell shock and PTSD after World War II. And apparently has been in multiple documentaries about that and is very famous for that. So
Yeah, really
it was
respected hypnotherapist.
there was the Lonnie Zamora case, which is just freaking weird, in '64. And I bring that one up because that was one of the ones that J. Allen Hynek said uh, Project Blue Book couldn't explain. And that was when a sheriff was driving down a desert road and he sees an egg-shaped craft land and drives up, and there are two little people outside gathering dirt, and they get back in and fly off. And that was one of the ones that Blue Book, for as bizarre as it was, I couldn't explain it. And there was a reason to believe that he saw what he saw. There's a lesser-known case in 1966 called Westall, which was in Australia. And I think that's one of the really interesting ones that it doesn't get talked about. In Westall, Australia, this Vietnam was going on. So tensions were high, but at the school, all the kids said they were seeing a UFO flying overhead. Teachers came out, they saw it, and that it kept buzzing the school, and then it landed, I believe, in a clearing across the street or from a distance from the school. And that one of the kids went up, and one of the girls went and talked to the occupants of the ship. But what was curious about it was the U.S. Army was there within like a half hour. And nobody quite knows how the hell the U.S. Army would even know to show up there, what they were doing in that part of Australia. And there had been investigations after the fact. And it was an interesting documentary. I think it was called Revisiting Westall 66. And the investigators went to the news station that covered it, the local news, and they were like, okay, we'd like to get the archives. And they went into the archives, and the footage for that day was gone. And the people, the news network didn't even know that it had gone missing. All the interviews had been taken from the files. They were gone. But another interesting thing was one girl that supposedly had talked to the occupants of the ship vanished. And her family, this is documented, just gone. The next day, her family is gone. And it was said the military took them. The documentary makers went to track her down and found that she was living in Sydney. And when they approached her, she was very weird about it. And she did talk to them, but she said, it was a very strange time. I was a child, and I don't really remember a whole lot anymore. I just don't really remember a lot. And that was the thing she just kept bringing up, is that her memories were really clouded and scrambled.
Wonder if it was some kind of either her just plain denying it, or if they did some kind of hypnotic suggestion.
Yeah. Do you want me to keep going, or I mean,
Yeah, you can keep going. This is great.
okay,
That one though, before you keep going, reminds me
yeah,
kind of the same one that happened. I believe it was in like the late '80s
yeah.
in Africa. Remember that one where the aliens they landed
Oh, in
down?
Zimbabwe.
Yeah, in Zimbabwe. Yeah, with the school kids.
Yeah, actually, it is kind of similar. There's the Andreessen affair, which was in '67, and that's another lesser-known abduction case. And that one's interesting because the woman had multiple visits. They had a lot of similarities to the Barney and Betty Hill case. There was only 6 years difference in the time scale. And I find that one interesting because specifically, the Betty and Barney Hill case did not go public until I think 68, 69, thereabouts, with a book. And even then, the book, although known, it really didn't become a big deal, and the image of the gray alien didn't really become known until I believe 1975, when that TV movie was made with James Earl
James Earl
Jones.
Jones. Yeah, he had
And that
options.
was the first
The
time that the
rights.
gray alien became kind of the face of what aliens look like. And then suddenly that, and then after Close Encounters, that's what everybody saw. Everybody saw gray aliens after that.
It's funny too
So,
because the thing with the hills, it was leaked out by a confidant that was taking the report.
oh,
And
really?
yeah, and was basically had promised to not, and I forget in what capacity they worked, but it was like an official kind of capacity, and they had betrayed their trust and leaked it out to the papers, and that was it. And at that point, they
Yeah.
were like, "We got to do whatever we can," because their lives were getting essentially ruined, and they had to figure out a way to do it. And then they started getting approached about publishing their story and everything else. So one thing kind of became the other, but it was even that was relatively short lived because then Barney ends up passing away just
Yeah.
out of nowhere. And so that was kind of strange in and of itself. But it's funny because they mentioned the fact that Barney explicitly talks about when he's under hypnotic suggestion that he, if he were to talk about this, would get reprisal. Betty wasn't threatened in the same capacity. Apparently, she never mentions that within when she's under hypnosis or within any of the dreams that she had or anything.
She's just
But
told over and over again, you won't remember.
yeah, but Barney's explicitly threatened that if he was to say something about this experience, that something would happen to him.
I'll
And
have to go
it's
back and check. I just recall they had said you don't want to do that, but I didn't recall
yeah,
there being a threat.
yeah, only to him though.
Yeah,
Apparently,
that's strange.
yeah,
The interesting I was going to bring, so I brought up the Andreessen affair. The reason I count that as interesting is, again, the image of the gray alien wasn't common. Now, the Roswell incident, that nurse, when she drew the picture of what the alien looked like, it looked like a gray. The alien Barney described looked like a gray. The alien drawn by the woman in the Andreessen abduction looked like a gray. None of these people would have any way of knowing about each other. None of this was mainstream information. None of it had hit the media or newspapers or books or TV. So that's what I find interesting about those cases.
yeah. Even aliens being featured in sci-fi were usually like
Yeah.
monstrous. You couldn't even come not humanoid in many capacities other than you get Star Trek and a couple of them kind of obviously are of the human inclination, but
Yeah,
none of them really look like grays. I don't think there's one single gray looking type alien on all of Star Trek at the first series.
I mean, I suppose you could argue the ones with big heads and robes, but I don't count them.
No, yeah, that's still kind of different.
But yeah, I would say that prior to the 70s, when somebody talked about aliens, it was either little green men or it was always different or always random. Well, okay, or they were the Space Brothers, but that's a story that's a tangent in itself.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The the Nordics.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, prior to that, aliens were always very, very random in their descriptions, if people saw them. Although J. Allen Hynek, after Blue Book, when he came forward, because you know how after Blue Book, he got really frustrated and said, look, I was basically told to lie, and went public, and he was talking about all the, he said that no, that actually there was a 21% of the cases from a certain report that was not published, could not be explained. He had said that something like in 6% of the cases, little beings had been, little humanoids had been mentioned in the report. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another
Even Blue,
abduction.
even Blue
Yeah.
Book within and of itself is it was like a front and a cover up at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And and there was so many things even before Blue Book that were treated as if no, those don't exist. That's just crazy people stuff. And
They
then
wanted this to go away.
decades later, oh yeah, no, that those existed.
Right.
They poured a lot of time, energy, and money into something that was obviously just non-existent. Crazy people stuff. So it's one of two things, and it might even just be both. It's either obviously yes, this exists, and there's an effort to try to see what it is, or it's a complete and total lie, and like a slush fund to put all this money effort into this and distract and pour the money into something else.
I
And it
think
could
it's
be
both.
both. Yeah.
I do. I think it's both. I think it's a great way for them to stash money. I know a lot of people aren't going to like me saying this, but if you dig into Skinwalker Ranch, it was basically Harry Reid and was it Lear, John Lear, bleeding the government of money. I mean, really, that's all it really was they were trying to create a essentially a paranormal Disneyland to get tourists into the area on this piece of land that wasn't worth anything. And
Interesting.
it was just one great big scam. There's some real interesting investigations into just how poorly that was managed and how a lot of people were just using it to get tax dollars.
The thing about Skinwalker Ranch, though, and I mean, it's not necessarily special in this regard, is that there's still stuff that is being cited and documented over there. But I mean, there's also stuff that's cited and documented in a lot of different places. I think for it to be, I think when it's being treated as if it's like the nexus,
Yeah.
this is where a lot of the stuff is occurring, and there's some kind of reasoning for it. The only other reasoning that could even be, if it's legitimate, would have to be some kind of ley line sort of deal going on, some kind of stuff that you could actually get conclusive readings. And I mean, I know they've gotten some with EMF and things like that, but again, that happens in a lot of places. So that's interesting in terms of obviously the whole Robert Bigelow
Yeah.
ownership and everything that they discovered from that, and his very interesting interview on CBS where he's like, no, they're real. And he's just like, I don't care if you think I'm crazy, I know what I know. And then like no one talks about that though. like they buried that, like that guy who's working like hand in glove with the government, and they're
Right.
burying things in terms of in one way or the other. Like, to me, if nothing was on Skinwalker Ranch, there's probably stuff there now that was buried there. But it's one of those things where that should have been everywhere, questioning every single thing possible about what was just spoken about, and it was just kind of like shrug.
Well, how about when Trump went to Roswell and he said he wanted the files and he said he was going to release them? And then after the visit and seeing the files, he came back and he said, "Well, I'm going to have to think about it." Really, well, if there's nothing there, he'd just share it.
Oh, and that's when, honestly, that's when things went off the rails, though. Off the rails.
Yeah.
Absolute, just like it was, his presidency was already kind of like on shaky ground with a lot of things with the way that he was. But as soon as, because in the beginning, he was sort of like, I don't really know about UFO stuff. I don't really care. Look into it. But then as soon as that became a thing, it was just like, get this guy out of here. So it was very interesting.
So, let's see. I'll just fire through the other ones real quickly. There's the Pascagoula abduction, which is really fascinating. As weird as that one is, it was probably true. The Walton abduction's interesting. That was here in Arizona. That's fire in the sky.
Yep.
One of the ones that I say is the most legit is the Rendlesham Forest incident.
Yep.
Down to radiation. What was it? Radiation leftovers. The film was the pictures they took. The film had been radiation damaged. The men themselves suffered radiation sickness, and there were landing imprints on the ground. And that was another one where the government covered up and didn't want to talk about it. And when they couldn't hide it anymore, suddenly they're constantly talking about it and muddying it up with disinformation. Why? If there's nothing there. They kept denying that there was this tape. The tape was found. There is the Hudson Valley sightings in 1980, which was important because that was another one where a whole bunch of people kept seeing a big flying V.
Yeah. It's interesting too that there's tons of stuff from the Hudson Valley area for a really long time. Really, really long time. Even explorers, when they were first populating the states, documenting very weird occurrences, weird things being seen.
Oh, really? Like what?
Just various expeditions that were in the region were documenting weird creatures, weird kind of UFO, like lights in the sky.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point in time, when you're talking about that's anything in the sky is weird, because nothing's in the sky other than birds. So if they're writing about strange lights or objects in the sky seeming to follow them, you can't go, well, it's maybe a helicopter or a plane or this or a drone or no. There's none of that. So what the hell is that? It's got a really long history. It's like hundreds and hundreds of years of weird occurrences. And then there's really weird stuff just built within the Hudson Valley region. Yeah, so that whole region's got a weird history to it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, look into it when you can. It's strange how many occurrences
I didn't know that.
have happened in that area. Yeah.
In Belgium, there were all those sightings of a flying triangle. That was a big deal in 1990. 1997, Phoenix Lights. In 2000, there was the St. Clair Triangle in Illinois, in which another flying V was spotted. Then the other ones that are the most recent is the Nimitz in 2004, the O'Hare International Airport sighting in 2006, and then the Roosevelt, USS Roosevelt in 2014.
Yeah. Even
so in all those cases.
The Nimitz one, too, that's the Tic Tac, right?
Right. That and the Roosevelt were both Tic Tac.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of talk where that's ours. It's out of Lockheed Martin.
I kind of wonder about that, too.
But it seems like it would have to be, only because if you think 2004, like we allegedly just had 2001 September 11 being a big bad terrorist incident. And then all of a sudden now you're seeing something like that in 2004. And you guys are just like, yeah, let's kind of let it be.
Yeah.
It didn't like bells and whistles all over the place of like what the hell is going on. No, it's sort of like, yeah, just we don't know what it is, I guess. And the people seeing it in the military are like, what the hell is that? And they're just like, yeah, you just like, I mean, things happen. I guess you see stuff. It's like, yeah, why? Because probably
Yeah.
people up top knew, yeah, that's one of ours.
Well, the fact that 10 years later on the USS Roosevelt, it was the same, it was almost the identical experience. Everything described, it was almost identical
Yeah,
with the crew, and the government was, oh, let's just watch it,
yeah.
it's no big deal.
Just keep an eye on it. Let it do its thing. Yeah, Blast Beat. Yeah, a lot of the stuff is Air Force, government, etc., military, and there's different grades of clearances too. So there's a lot of people that are in positions like the pilots that'll see stuff and report it, and they don't know what the hell is going on at the top secret level, and they just kind of are almost gaslit into thinking, no, just let it be, and they're not going to tell them, no, that's one of ours. Yeah, we got some crazy stuff that does things that we didn't think was possible before. Because if we let everybody know that we got antigravitics
Yeah,
and all kinds
exactly.
of other things, that's going to change the landscape of a lot of things.
Well, there's a lot of reason to think that the U.S. government has gone out of their way to make sure anti-grav is not discovered by the rest of by the rest of the world, or even by the public. That's something they have, and they have alone. And one of the reasons being is, if anti-grav is possible, it kind of redefines physics and opens the door to all sorts of different technologies. And the theory I've always heard was, well, when they split the atom, look at the Pandora's box that opened. Do they want that open to the rest of the world again?
I feel like it's inevitable. It's like a
Yeah,
bit of a paradox because it's impossible and inevitable at the same time. But I think there's no arguing the fact of the massive leap forward in technology that occurs post World War II, especially once you're talking about the non-stop level of what seems like, anyway. It's like every year is a major extraterrestrial type event, or at least some kind of UFO sighting or some kind of interaction on some level, to the point that we get all kinds of government divisions developed to keep this stuff top secret, to keep this stuff, keep tabs on it, keep tabs on the people who are witnessing it and reporting it. If it was all just a big, no, it's just a bunch of people that are making stuff up, or they're not seeing what they're seeing, they're just all crazy. Why would you put all that into it? Why would you invest all that time and money and everything else into it? Report after report. And then we're seeing now a very odd thing where, I mean, you just listed off maybe a dozen or so top
right.
quality instances. And now you got NASA coming out and talking about how they don't really have anything conclusive that they could determine about any of this stuff. It's just it's absolutely mind-boggling. There's at least hundreds of solid reports. I think there's been something like 100 or 200,000
Yeah.
reports over the years, and like 10% of them are just baffling and just really solid reports. That's like 10 to 20,000. So even if like you look at it and go, oh, 190,000 out of those or whatever, yeah, they know what it is, but like 10,000 is a lot to not figure out what that is and to say that that might actually be legit. But yet there's nothing, they don't have enough data.
And really, I think the only reason that the Pentagon came forward and said, okay, yeah, UFOs are real, is they need to control the narrative. I think it got to the point where they can't control the narrative anymore.
Absolutely. It's kind of like that with everything.
And I mean, they tried that with, they trotted out that dude from, was it Blink 182? You
Yeah,
remember
with
him?
the with the To the Stars Academy,
Yeah,
Tom DeLonge.
and Tom DeLonge was obviously their puppet. Apparently, John Podesta had been feeding him information and emails since the 90s. They'd been pen pals, and they obviously thought he was going to be their new spokesperson to get the kids
Get the kids,
distracted.
yeah.
And he bombed so monumentally bad on Rogan's show
Yeah,
that they got rid of
it
him
was
instantly.
embarrassing. It was really embarrassing. I mean, like, of course it would be, but
Yeah,
it was just like, what is? And the people that were around too. It's even the whole thing with like Lou Elizondo. It makes me go, I don't know. I don't know if I can.
I don't trust him.
Yeah,
Him and the other guy both are like intelligence officers. They're both from the intelligence agency. Why would I trust them? I think those guys were like, well, our whole Tom DeLonge thing fell through. Get this guy. I mean, these guys, their old jobs were confusing things. They were disinformation specialists. Why would I trust them?
yeah. And I think it's so deep that it's almost like saying, here's the truth, but it looks like a lie. So then you have to question the lie that's a truth, and part of it's a truth, and then you don't know which
Right.
part is what. It's like it's all over the place. Like you said, it's a disinformation expert.
You know about Rick Doty or Richard Doty?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I mean, well, geez, that was his entire job was
yeah,
this guy from Air Force Intelligence who'd made his entire job was going out, finding people, giving them a bunch of real information mixed up with a bunch of false information, knowing they're going to go out and talk, and that the tactic was just fill it up. Don't hide it, release the truth, and just cloud it with so much disinformation and bullshit that people will just think it's all fake. All of it.
yeah. And just the entire he has all those stories about paying off various journalists and media to
Yeah.
either cover certain things or not cover certain things.
And
And
the fact,
yeah,
yeah. No, the fact that he was a consultant on the X Files for plots. Yeah, can you believe that? That what was it? He used to he would do things as go so far as to have his people take a bunch of old aircraft parts, create a fake UFO crash site, and then like fly a person over it and say, "See, there it is." Just stuff like that. It's like he was a real master at screwing people up, and then he'd tell them stuff that was also real.
yeah. He's if remembering correctly, uh, Doty was someone who had said that he was part of like the Men in Black kind of a thing,
Yeah,
of people who would go in there. And I think the Men in Black is murkier than even what he would be referencing, because there's so many weird, strange reports of people who have allegedly met Men in Black type people, and it sounds like they're describing some kind of android Nazi. Like they're
sometimes.
pale, yeah, like they're pale. They don't seem fully human. They have like glazed over eyes. They're very polite, but they're also very strange. Like they don't understand certain phrases of speech, certain things. They'll become fascinated with it, like a pen cap and stuff
I
like
remember
that.
that.
Yeah, and then
that report.
yeah, and they'll have like weird like shades of lip coloring on them that would smear off eventually, and it just a lot of odd and unusual things. And then people will report that sometimes it would seem like they were running out of energy, like they would start powering down and then abruptly have to leave. Like their speech would get slower and their movements would get slower, like, and they'd start kind of, okay, we have to go, and then they would go. It's very, very strange.
So what got you into this initially?
I've always been into this stuff. I think it was just I always had an interest in things that didn't seem like they were real, but yet obviously they were. So even if every UFO thing ever is completely and 100% made up, a complete fantasy, a delusion among people, it's fascinating that so many people are having this shared delusion. So even in that respect, if it's the same thing with Bigfoot, the same thing with everything. Bermuda Triangle, anything that's strange and unusual in that respect, that it's like, it seems like it should be impossible. It seems like it should not be a thing. And yet it obviously is, because so many people from forever have been discussing it, referencing it, talking about it, relaying their experiences. And I don't know, even as a kid, I was drawn to that stuff, that it just seems like, wow, how could that be? And I'd be just interested in it and reading up about it. Even though, like with you, especially when it came to aliens, because of the abduction factor, and then I'm sure Unsolved Mysteries didn't help me much. But anytime it'd be like an alien episode, and they would have the drawings, people who, like, when they draw them, and they look human but really not, like,
Yeah.
those would freak me out the most. Not necessarily the grays, they were kind of
Right.
freaky too, but more like the humanoid type people, where like the eyes are too spaced out, or like the nose is too small, or like the proportion of the mouth to the nose is like a little too long, the jaw is a weird shape, all these various things about, like, it'd be like a bad drawing. But I'm thinking, like, if that's what they're describing, like, I'd be seeing that as a kid. And I'm like, if that's what a person looked like, that's freaky, man. So that would stick in my head. And it kind of fueled my... It's hard to tell what I love first. I could swear that it was this stuff slightly before I really got into comics. But I always knew about comics because I always saw the comics. But the stories, I didn't know how to read at the time. But it kind of fueled my love of the comic stories, because it was so much of it was based around impossible things that seemed like, wow, what if that could be? And it just kind of got my imagination going. And then just you go deeper and deeper with this stuff, and it gets more and more troubling and fascinating every step you go.
Well, I'm pretty fascinated. One of the things I find I'm personally very interested in is the lore that is formed over the years about grays, the whole gray alien lore. Because we know that some of it was made up by the military and distributed, but then there's a lot of it that came from stuff that happened, like, again, Betty, Barney Hill, the Andreessen affair, Travis Walton. I mean, there's a Whitley Strieber. I mean, there's a fair amount of them that it also came from true believers or people who experienced something. And that you've had this kind of back and forth with propaganda and then just kind of public zeitgeist and experience going all and mixing together. And this lore that's kind of cropped up since the 70s and kind of tapered off in the 2000s that has kind of held ever since. And I find that very fascinating. And one of the things I find interesting about that lore is how much of it mirrors like the Celt stories of the Fae.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is very, very interesting. You know, stories of the changelings, the stories of the Fae abducting people and taking them to fairyland, or
Lost time. Yeah.
Lost times. The fact that they would steal children because their own young were dying out, or they were very sickly and they were having trouble reproducing, or that they would steal human women to mother their children for times and then bring them back later. And I mean, these are all stories now repeated about aliens.
Yeah, it's true. I think there's so many things from those points in time, whether it's myths, legends, religion, whatever, where what it sounds like they're talking about is what we would refer to as either abductions or encounters today. That in itself to me is just, that's interesting. I mean, they talk about it a lot on, like, Ancient Aliens, talking about the misunderstood technology and kind of mislabeling certain things based on their knowledge of certain words, and things get lost in translation. And I mean, that's just obvious stuff in terms of that happening over time. I mean, that happens just within historical texts. So the fact that couldn't happen as a description to describe that kind of stuff,
right?
I mean, it just seems like obviously it would.
Well, another one that stuck out to me was apparently what was it? The thing that made Constantine decide to make Rome the Holy Roman Empire. The thing he always said was that night before the battle, that I forget the battle. He had looked up into the sky to ask the gods for a victory, and he said he saw a Christian cross in the sky. Except when you read what he saw, it isn't a Christian cross. What he described was a flame.
Anybody else get a issue? Your audio cut off very abruptly.
Okay, okay, sorry. I don't know. That was weird.
That was really weird. It was literally just like what he really saw was, and then
what he really saw was a circle, a flaming circle with an X in it. He didn't see a crucifix, but he apparently, I guess he likened the two. So I mean, that sounds like a saucer to me.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that that gets reported, and it makes me think about the same thing. What is it? Charlemagne, right? It was Charlemagne, wasn't it?
Oh, it was Charlemagne. You're right. It wasn't Constantine. I think.
Was it?
I don't remember.
It's one of. I get the two of them confused all the time, and I really shouldn't because they're like so completely, absolutely different. In the chat, you guys would know. Is it Charlemagne or is it Constantine?
Okay.
Constantine was with the Roman Empire, right? So.
Yeah.
But
Constantine was the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah. But then there was, I could swear Charlemagne had something to do with seeing aliens as well. Who the hell knows? Maybe he did. But yeah, that story with yours was Constantine. Absolutely. Yeah. Interesting though, man. Man, oh man. Okay, I got the link here for you guys if you do want to join. I can't get over the audio getting cut off right when you were gonna explain it. That's
weird.
funny. If you guys want to join, there's the link. I've got a couple of comments here. Yeah, Charlemagne was with the Franks. Yeah. But at that point in time, too, he also was, if I'm remembering correctly with Charlemagne, he kind of put the Roman Empire back on the map hundreds of years later. All right. Let's see. Vincent Flanagan says, I'm going to keep the details to a minimum for privacy, but I was visiting someone as a kid, and their parent dreamed they were abducted and tested on and woke up with scars of the things they remembered. He still doesn't believe in aliens to this day. That's interesting. I wonder what that could be. Very interesting. What Geeks Do Network says, anyone aware of UFOs at military bases disabling missiles? Yeah, like at Malmstrom, right? Is it Robert Salas? Is that the name?
I don't know.
But yeah, that whole incident, you remember that one at all? Do you know about that one? Where they were disabling the nukes?
Yeah, I've heard about I've heard of a few of those. Apparently they don't talk about it, but that happened at Rendlesham too.
Yeah, it's like some kind of a weird common thing. And I wonder why. It could be a lot of different things occurring. Could be the greatest excuse cover-up for screwy things occurring at a nuclear base. Oh, the aliens came back. That's why these things sometimes go on and off.
Can't help it. Aliens are here.
No one panic. It's just a thing they do. It just happens. Or it's even more interesting. If they're able to, if the aliens want to intervene at all and just kind of do like a Superman 4 and get all the nukes and put them somewhere. Any day now, guys. Any day now. Help us out. Wave of Mutilation says, I was just watching Esoterica's History of Vampires and didn't know there were cults. Yeah. Do you know anything about that? Yeah, there's lots of vampire cults.
not really up on vampires. That's more of Cat's territory. But the one I keep thinking of is the people in Silicon Valley who were paying that service that was collecting blood from young people so that old people could have it injected into them. That old tech CEOs could have blood injected into them to keep them young.
Yeah, doing these weird blood transfusion type things.
Sounds like vampires to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of at the heart of vampirism. Is all about that blood keeping you alive and young.
And, if you kind of think about it, adrenochrome falls into the same thing. Supposedly, extracting it from innocents, and they're injecting it to stay young, and it gets them high.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is even in vampire lore, I can't think of any where they're like, let's go eat some old people.
Yeah.
Let's go drink some old people blood. Anyone want to come out tonight and drink old people? I mean, they'd be an easy target. It's usually like young people, preferably virgins.
Yeah.
They're not really all about let's go down to the senior center and have a vampire party. It's a little interesting that never works its way into the lore. If it's all about just getting some blood, why not? Go for easy pickings.
Yep, they never go. Yeah, it's always the blood of the innocent.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, we got somebody here in the background in the room here, and I'll bring him on in just a second. Here we go. All right, Rob, what's up, Rob? You're on Comic Book Radio, Paranormal
Hey, what's up,
Edition
guys?
tonight.
How you doing? What's up, Ishi? What's up, Pete? How are you tonight?
I'm doing
Hello
good.
there.
How are you? What's your question or comment?
Well, I wanted to share two experiences I had really quick, and then I had one quick question for you guys. And the blood thing I believe you guys are talking about is adrenochrome? I don't know. Is that maybe
Yeah.
what you're... Yeah. But anyway, I used to watch, about 10 years ago, I was like a sky watcher. I was real into UFOs and stuff, and I would go outside and just watch the sky and just hope to see something. And my first experience was the thing that's commonly just called an orb. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before. But I was watching the sky, and it kind of just looked like a star, and then it started moving. And I was like, all right, maybe that's a satellite or something.
Yeah, they
Then
kind of pulsate too, right?
They do. And I figured it was a star at first. Then it started moving, and I figured it was a satellite. But then it did some angular movements, and I was like, all right, that's interesting. Just happened to catch that. And then one night, at the same exact location on that back porch, I was taking the garbage out, and it was the most perfect timing. Walked out the back door with the garbage in my hand, looked up, and I saw something explode, like a real small explosion way up in the sky, and then implode back on itself and just disappear. And it was...
Wait, so it went and then it came and condensed?
Yeah, it came back into itself, and it was gone. And I thought that was the most interesting thing. And even the next day, I remember looking for headlines to see if maybe that was something, that happened that was explainable, and there was nothing to be found. And it was just really interesting. I don't know if anyone else has ever seen anything like that. And, I wasn't taking drugs. I wasn't under the influence of anything. It was just a straight experience. But the one question I had for you guys, what do you think of the Phil Snyder story about the engineer who worked for the military, who went around telling his story about how he was lowered
he
into
lost
the cavern.
fingers, right?
Yeah,
There was
he
like
got his fingers blown off, and there was
it's like a
gray,
laser fight with aliens.
with the gray aliens in the military, and he was the only survivor to get out of there. And he went around and he told that story, at first I was like, that could be anything. It could just be someone who's trying to get attention and stuff. But then he wound up dead.
Yeah, you wound up suicided in a way that you
Suicided.
can't suicide yourself.
Yeah, so I was wondering what you guys thought of that, if you know anything about it.
That's a very difficult story because the story itself is the problem. I mean, him getting suicided is far more interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, he does have that really incredible injury, which was one of the things that made it so convincing. The part I had trouble with was one, why would a mining team have pistols on them while mining? I mean, it just. Also in the story, he had a breather on and then he takes it off and doesn't have any trouble. And at least what I've read of Gray's, bullets go right through them. But who knows, right?
Yeah, because he did claim that a couple of them were killed. Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, I always thought that sounded like, especially because of the fact of the weird circumstances of his death, I always thought that it sounded like a weird case of implanted memories.
I kind of wondered about that.
And that with him talking about what he was talking about, he was kind of revealing something without revealing something. And that just him doing that in and of itself and drawing so much attention to it, it just seemed like that had to stop. And but yeah, the weird way, it's strange how when they do that to people and they suicide them, it's like, you guys, that's a straight up murder that occurs. It's not the way that dude died was not, and it's not any way that someone could have possibly done to themselves.
Yeah, that's what made me more interested
Well,
into it.
Like you strangle yourself to death from behind.
Well, here's one of the interesting things was Richard Doty, the disinformation man or mirage man, who worked for Air Force intelligence, who staged all the UFO propaganda. You know, one of his marks that he screwed with the most famous one was Paul Benowitz, who had been this guy that was, he ran a tech company and he lived by a base, and he was convinced he was intercepting alien messages. What he was really doing was tapping top secret military communications. And so the Air Force decided to use him to feed disinformation to the UFO community, which had been infiltrated by the Soviets. So here we've got a guy who can go out there and say, look, I've broken into these frequencies and I'm hearing this, and they're aliens. And over the years, all this stuff happened to Doty, or not Doty, to Benowitz. But one thing that Doty did say about Benowitz that he thought was really strange was one finding out that the Air Force wasn't the only agency messing with him. And that that the Air Force intelligence guys started running into CIA and NSA people who were also doing things to Doty, and he didn't know why. And that apparently Doty had a mental breakdown, or not Doty, Benowitz, the mark, had a breakdown, was checked into a mental hospital to get his head right. And while there, one, he supposedly somehow crawled out of a window with bars on it and was found, was it 10 miles down the road by the side of the road with needle track marks in his neck. And it was deemed a suicide.
Wow. That's interesting. I have to look into that one. I've never even...
And it's like, well, okay, here's someone we know was being fed disinformation, who we know was being told this to fool the public and to fool Soviets. Yet some government agency kidnapped him and killed him, and it wasn't the Air Force. Why? There have been reports of...
I think there's a strong possibility, too, where a lot of this stuff is not even within our government.
Oh, it's foreign?
Not even foreign. I really think that it was like we're seeing more of it today out and about. But more like a global elite power structure.
Oh, yeah. Shutting somebody up?
Yeah, like a shadow government type of thing, like a global shadow government. Because that is, if you start throwing off the paradigm and the dynamic across the board, that's pretty bad for them. So you're going to have something where it's above just a sovereign government across the board. And whether they're aware of it existing or not, I think there's some cases where, especially in cases like that seem to make absolutely positively no sense. And it's not to say that there aren't governments that will do various things. Obviously there are. But I feel like this is such a topic that is above just national security. It's a global thing, and it is tied so much into the power structure and the economic structure of the entire planet at this point in time. I feel like something was created that's almost like a shadow UN.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks
Becoming
for,
less and less shadow by the day.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna get out of here before I get put on any lists. Okay, thanks for having me on, guys.
All right,
Awesome
man.
show as always. Take care.
Take it easy, Rob.
Bye bye.
No, another one that I was going to say is there have been military guys who've claimed to have had alien encounters, and my opinion goes as follows. I've read so many abduction accounts, and that there being a very, very set pattern to it, to how it happens, what the Greys do, how they behave, the technology that's observed. It's all very, very standard. And
Yeah, there's like a
usually,
protocol to it.
yeah, and usually it always involves things like, one, they walk through walls. They can transport people through out of the house through their ceiling. If a person feels pain, they can say you don't feel pain, and it's or it's telepathic.
And it stops, yeah.
Things like that. Anytime I hear an abduction story where it's like, and then they stuck me with a needle, it's like, I think those were humans.
Yeah.
They carried me out my window. No, those were humans.
They picked me up on the side of the road.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are abduction stories where, well, then the aliens paralyzed me and walked me out the front door. So why would they have to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's ones that seem like, yeah, that kind of follows the way that they do things. And then there's other ones that seem like that seems like a human being
Yeah.
setting up an abduction. I mean, putting in hypnotic suggestion, implanting memories, creating false memories, whatever it may be. I mean, that's just run-of-the-mill stuff for various agencies when it comes to certain things that go down. So
It is quite terrifying to find out how real that is. You know, in the
Yeah.
80s I heard about it, and when I was younger, I just kind of said, oh, that's science fiction, whatever. Okay, that's conspiracy theories. But there have
until
been
they
one...
declassify it, then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's right from the source. Great.
Well, just the increase in the mass shooters as of late that just... It's like, this makes no sense. This makes absolutely no sense. How did someone who works a minimum wage job get a $3,000 rifle with a scope and a vest, and have all the resources to do this? The fact that so many of the what's the term? It seems so staged it glows.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, even the terminology for that, when it's set up that it seems like it's human beings doing it, it was stagecraft.
Yeah.
So coming up with that kind of a thing in terms of almost creating like a Hollywood production out of it and putting people in such a state, the whole is like you said, whenever they talk about they're injecting you with a needle, I'm like that right there turns into, yep, there's going to be some funky things that happen to you that make you misremember certain aspects of certain things and put you in a suggestible state. Period. Because that's not going to go down with aliens.
Yeah, the guys that the original witnesses from Rendlesham flat out said after the fact that they were taken into a room with guys who did not wear ranks on their uniforms, and they couldn't identify, who badgered them and harassed them for like hours on end, and then they were given drugs, and they said they had scrambled memories and holes in their memory after that. So
Let's see. August D says, "No way, this is actually live." In what way do you mean that? That here we are talking about it and we haven't been shut down yet, or that you're like, "Hey, cool, I caught one of these shows live," or maybe both. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Metatron's cube, totally. Yeah, Tesla claimed to have made radio contact with something outside Earth in 1899. Yeah, that was interesting too.
well, yeah, we could talk about the Black Knight satellite, which people suspect that was.
Right? Even that whole thing with Philip K. Dick allegedly being able to get some kind of a transmission or communication from beings that he thought were on the Black Knight satellite.
Right, exactly. Which there are parts to that story that can't be explained.
Yeah.
But, the Black Knight satellite, it was detected before we had anything up there. And it was in an orbit we couldn't attain even for years after. And it was acknowledged and we were aware of it, and then suddenly no one wanted to talk about it and asked us, it's not real.
It's like it is. It's clearly, it's there. What's going on with that? Not nothing. It's nothing. That's not suspicious at all. That's not suspicious at all. And the thing that's funny about going back again to the whole thing where there are people and groups outside of our own government, outside of other nations' governments that are pulling the strings on a lot of these topics and subjects. They're not elected. They don't have to answer to anybody. People that get up in arms nowadays so much about save democracy, this or that equals voting for this candidate. You guys have no idea even how far gone that concept is at this point. It is not even an illusion anymore. It's not even a surface level illusion. It's just right there in front of your face that these things exist that pull the various strings of the people who run and control every aspect of things on the planet. And a lot of them are out and about in front of your face. So the ones that are out and about and right there publicly, that there's people behind the scenes. The levels of it, I don't think people can actually grasp. I think it's a lot safer for people to not think that any of that sort of stuff exists, even though that sort of stuff has always existed. This isn't a modern creation. Just if you look throughout history, for the longest time, this kind of stuff has existed, where there's people that are outside of a governmental structure that are controlling and manipulating that government.
I think they go in cycles where they start to get too public and then the shit hits the fan. And I think we're fast approaching a they're getting too public point.
Yeah. It really
that
is.
And they're screwing up a lot, which is interesting.
Or are they screwing up? Are they just kind of like doing the weird little, let's see if this is okay to talk about now and reveal? How much can we reveal and be out in the open? Because I think they'd prefer to be completely out in the open, but they know that that's not really a possibility because people would revolt and really start going, no, we're not taking any of that. But if they kind of try a little bit of this, and no one really seems to mind. Okay, try a little bit more of that. That's how this kind of stuff has happened for the longest time. People always go like, how did that, some awful, awful, horrible thing occur? Mm-hmm. How'd that come about? It's like, well, it didn't just go from everything was fine to everything is horrible. It's like one little tiny step at a time. And people accepting that incremental change.
I can talk about the breaking point and that kind of stuff, but I think that would veer us into territory that has nothing to do with UFOs and may not be the
honestly
best thing to bring up right now.
Well, we only got 4 minutes left, so we can't do it for time constraints. But honestly,
Okay.
I really believe a lot of that stuff. It's like everything else. It's all connected with as far as that goes. Because I think that's a big thing that people lose sight of within when they're very serious about looking into this topic. And there's so many solid researchers that have gotten involved with it only because they were looking into the history of different governments and ongoings here and there, and then finding that so much of it has ties to the UFO question. So it just seems like there's a lot of that built, or at least having it be a big part of why there's things the way they are. Like, to ignore the global political structure of things with the UFO question is to not fully understand or want to understand it, to compartmentalize it, to just kind of like, oh, it's just this sort of thing and that sort of thing. Like, it has to do with everything. So I think it's a lot closer and more tied together than we probably even realize.
That's interesting. We didn't get into the really crazy stuff. Actually, I think we kept this to the very, very real and stuff that is hard to question. But now you're kind of getting into the areas where you can start saying, well, they've been here all along. What horrible, horrible thing would happen if it turned out they made us? Things like that.
Oh, like if you're talking about like genetic manipulation
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
kind of
it's
thing,
like-
that they created the human race.
Yeah,
sort
what
of
if that
thing.
popped up and happened to be true? What if it... There's so many different scenarios where if you toss them into the equation, it just derails everything. And I do think that the power elite are genuinely not comfortable with that. That knowledge being known.
Yeah, I mean, like anything else, the only way you even actually attain power is through knowledge. So if you know something that other people don't, and you can manage to keep that to yourself, everyone's like, oh, the government can't keep a secret. They can keep plenty of secrets when they wanna.
Oh, yeah.
And
The best way to keep a secret is to make it public and then make it seem crazy.
yeah,
But yeah, I wanted to get in Jackie Gleason and the alien bodies that Nixon showed him. There's a Roswell connection there. You know about that one too, right?
yeah. Gleason was like so obsessed with aliens that his house was kind of structured like a UFO.
Well, the base that he was shown was one of the bases that they flew Roswell wreckage to. The one in Texas. So, but yeah, I just
Yeah,
it's
like when I
interesting.
first heard that, I just was like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like,
But yeah.
Jackie Gleason.
But
To
no,
the
another one
moon.
is look how often, look how upset the establishment gets. World governments, the UN, the intelligentsia all get really upset if someone starts putting forth archaeological theories that are viable about pre-civilizations or precursor civilizations.
Oh yeah, they start squirming in their chairs.
I mean, they have no problem with real nutty stuff. Like, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. But somebody actually starts bringing up artifacts and bringing an actual viable theory, and they get really upset and want it shut down. I mean, it's the UN has it very clear that they've got a very set notion of how history happened, and they will only fund research and promote research that supports it. And if you veer from that, like, no, the human race is older than what we thought. No, we didn't come out of Africa. No, civilizations predate Sumeria. Any of that stuff, they are very quickly to attack. Why?
Yeah, you figure that would want to be explored.
Where if something's really goofy, they don't mind. They don't care.
Oh yeah, well it's like the crazy nut outside, at 2 a.m. Would you wish they shut up? Yeah, but you're not gonna be like, man, that dude screaming out there at 2 a.m. The world's gonna end.
Yeah.
But when someone comes along and it can actually articulate every single possible thing and be like, here's a massive amount of evidence, here's all this research I've done, it's very conclusive, and you're like, oh man, they know what they're talking about. We got to really do
Right.
something to shut this person up. Which is
So
nowadays is, and for a very long time has been about reputation destruction and that kind of a thing. But and we see that stuff happening all the time. We even see it happening in the friggin' comic industry.
oh yeah.
You can say whatever you want, but as soon as you start really pinpointing a lot of the faults that have been going on that are purposeful and are obviously benefiting certain people within certain companies, which at this point in time especially is they're not just companies unto themselves, then you start really painting a target on your back. So it's just like that in academia, it's like that in the government, it's like that everywhere else. As soon as you actually start stepping on the wrong toes with the wrong subjects and you have evidence and you don't seem like a lunatic, something's
All
got to be
right.
done.
So should we call it an evening or?
Yeah, we'll call it an evening. Hour and a half. That's pretty good. I got to get back to work. This has been a nice, fun excursion covering the history of UFO slash UAP. It's interesting how much of this stuff has evolved over time, and then now it's getting to a point where things feel like we're on the precipice of some kind of meaningful disclosure, and they're doing
Yeah.
everything they possibly can to
To
just
muddy it.
yes, absolutely.
Well, can I pump my books?
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. I am ISHIRO FINNEY, author and alien in a human suit. And I have a novella currently available called Scars, which I encourage all of you to read. Probably, I would say, my best prose piece I've ever written. If you want a sci-fi buddy story that... just read it. I am best known for Case File Arkham, Book 1 and 2, graphic novels. They are 1940s PI noir set in Lovecraft's most cursed city, Arkham. And if you like stories where men are men, women are gorgeous, and the hell beasts from the abyss do not come with a trigger warning, check out Case File Arkham. And finally, if you care about the culture war and what's really going on, Boobs of Steel. Seriously. We did a whole show on it. Go listen to it.
That was a good one too.
Yeah.
It's a well-researched book. Speaking of research, I was impressed, to be honest. I thought it was going to be I mean, you're an intelligent dude, and I knew it was going to be well written, but I thought it was going to be kind of sloppily put together with very obvious talking points and just a couple of, And I was like, no, this is well put together. It's concise. It's like a thesis.
I wanted it entertaining to read, too. I had plenty to say. I mean, we'd been in the industry for quite a long time, and I had been watching this all happen, and it was like, okay, I got to say something.
Yeah. No, it's well researched and well written and not dryly written. So yeah, if you guys do pick it up, I think you'll enjoy it. 01publishing.com, that's the site. And is your stuff available elsewhere too?
Yeah, Amazon. All of my stuff is on Amazon.
All right, there you go. And where can they find you at this point?
J. ISHIRO FINNEY here on YouTube or at 01 Publishing. And I guess I'll eventually come back to Twitter. They killed my account, so...
Sometimes I think that's like, it's for the best.
Yeah.
You're not missing anything. Unless you are.
No,
But, yeah.
I don't really want to go back, but as a writer, I need to have a presence.
I hear you. Well, thank you so much for being on the show tonight, man. This was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed talking to you about this. You know your stuff, and it was a pleasure, my friend.
It was good talking to you, too. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, everybody go check out Jay's work at 01 Publishing. And as far as I go, I'm going to be on Joe M. Sontag's show tomorrow night. So catch me over there. I'm going to be off on Thanksgiving, but I've got a fun little upload for you guys on Thanksgiving. Just we do all kinds of different things on this channel. You got comic talk, you got paranormal talk, you got the occasional what you see on Thanksgiving. I'm going to put up there. We got that. It's a little off topic, but near and dear to my heart. And either way, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate the conversation, the comments in the chat, the questions. You guys are always awesome. If I don't see you before Thanksgiving, I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful, happy Thanksgiving. And I'm certainly thankful for all of you guys. So thank you for being here, for subscribing, for watching, and for participating. Really appreciate it. Jay, thank you as well, my friend. Give my best to Kat. And always a pleasure talking to you and having you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. All right. Good night, everyone.
Everybody, take it easy. Have a wonderful night and an even better tomorrow. See you guys.